The Rolex Daytona is still an undisputed hype watch, and that doesn't look like it'll change anytime soon. 6 months after their announcement, the newest references still haven't appeared on the secondary market on any of the usual marketplaces. But that doesn't mean there aren't value for money picks in the Daytona back catalog. One of them in particular, the only one in fact, trades below the retail price of its current production successor. All the numbers in this video come from WatchCharts.com. Are you looking to browse listings from the biggest private sales marketplaces across the web? See insights on whether you're getting a good deal or not? Manage your collection and track its value over time? You can do all this and more on WatchCharts.com, the world's most powerful watch market research platform. Dive into the data yourself at WatchCharts.com. Since 2021, Rolex Daytona prices have skyrocketed and then sort of come back down to where, if we compare to where they were at the start of 2021, they're about 20 to 25% higher today. If we look at our Daytona index, that's really just part of the picture because the frothiness, as it were, is so concentrated that you can see how much more the appreciation and then the fall was for the Daytona compared to, let's say, the overall Rolex index. And the Rolex index, of course, has references from all of the Rolex model families, or at least the ones that make it to the top 30 most traded models. And so if we look at the Submariner index, for example, that shows a similar sort of trend, but nowhere near the sort of crazy growth that the Daytona index experienced. And in fact, if you look at just the Datejust, that's not even the peak at the start of 2022 is not even as pronounced for the Datejust as it is for Rolex. And just outside the Rolex family entirely, if we look at Omega, for example, that effect is even less pronounced. Thinking of individual references, if we look at the Zenith Daytona 16520, both the black and the white dial, that was in production for a little over a decade, these watches today trade solidly above 30,000 and in fact have done so for quite some time. This watch has not traded below $20,000 since 2021. But if we look at the two-tone version of the same watch, which was in production for essentially the same period of time, is the same movement on the inside, functions exactly the same, and instead of just being in steel, like the 16520, also includes two-tone, and so it's got a chunk of gold included in the case and the bracelet. That watch over the same time period just has not ever touched the same sorts of heights in price. Its current market price is $17,800, which is solidly below the retail price for the current production reference with the same configuration. The current production reference 126503, which again, there is no secondary market data for because the watch has not become available on the secondary market yet. There's no listings on eBay, on forums, on Chrono24, was announced this year. It has a retail price of $19,500 and retails for more than the secondary market price of this reference 16523, which is the only Daytona for which this comparison is possible. And I asked a friend of mine who's a dealer, shout out to Chris, if he could help explain why the price for this watch is so incredibly low. And really the only explanation here seems to be that there's just not as much demand for it because it's a two-tone execution of what is essentially the same watch. For my personal tastes, I am partial to two-tone. I like two-tone watches. And so if I were in the market for a Daytona, like this would be a no-brainer for me just from a purely pricing standpoint to buy something that appears to be so undervalued. But at large, the market seems to disagree. But if we look at the broader landscape and sort of just underscore this point of just how much of an anomaly this one particular reference is, let's look at the steel references and just run through, let's say, the last 2 to 3 generations of the Daytona. The reference 16520 trades for around $31,300. That's down 12 to 13% over the last year. And then if we sort of move on from that to the next variation on, which is the 16520, both the black and the white dial trade around $22,000 and have also lost over 10% over the last year. And then lastly, the previous generation 16500, the first one to feature ceramic bezels instead of steel bezels, trade for the black dial trades. There's more of a distinction between the dials there. The black dial trades for for 26,300 and the white dial trades for 29,500, and both of those have also lost about 15% over the last year. But within this steel sort of set, because of course not everybody's into two-tone, the best value for money pick would probably be the black dial 116520, just because it is the one that has the lowest value, and then there's not really that much that you could argue over to distinguish between these watches, unless of course you get into the Daytona space and then say, well, I want a ceramic bezel. If you want a ceramic bezel, then there's really just the 116500 or the current production 126500. But if it's the Daytona look that you're after and you want it in the steel version, then this one would seem to be the best value for money pick at the current point. Performance-wise, they've all sort of performed comparatively, where if we look at their performance since the start of 2021, they all experienced peaks. Of course, the white dial ceramic bezel 116500 was the one that experienced the greatest hype. It appreciated almost 100% from its value at the start of 2021. And now all 5 steel variants are essentially between 10 and 15% appreciated from where they were at the start of the year. And then, of course, the final interesting observation about the steel references is that every single one of these trades above the retail price, which is around $15,000 for the current production 126500. So if you want a steel Daytona, essentially you have to, on the secondary market, you have to pay way over retail. If we look at the two-tone references over the same period of time, of course, we've looked at the 16523 already, which trades for just under $18,000. And then this was succeeded by the 116523, which was the first Daytona to feature a fully in-house movement. This trades for more than the 16523, but not by much. And then the previous generation 1160503 still trades above $20,000, which is still above the retail price for the current generation two-tone Daytona. And so again, between these 3 picks, it would be a no-brainer to go with the 16523 purely from a value standpoint. And again, if we look at their performance comparison, just like the steel references, these 3 references have also largely performed similarly, and then today are trading between 15 to 20% above where they were at the start of 2021. So in that sense as well, they're not that different from where the steel references have ended up. If you wanted to buy a steel reference 116520, there's this listing, for example, from the start of September for just under $22,000, complete set with box and papers, that sort of highlights that these watches are actually trading at these prices and are available from reputable dealers on forums for around that much. And then the reference 16523, in this instance with papers but without a box, is listed for just under $16,000. Depending on which state you're in and where you're buying your steel Daytona 126500, you could be paying more for that than you would pay for this. And the fact that this is really the only Daytona reference for which that is the case is what makes it such an incredible value for money pick. I've never personally been interested in the Daytona, so perhaps because of that reason, my perspective on this is skewed. But when every single variant of the Daytona trades above the retail price of its current production counterpart, both in the steel and two-tone families, regardless of which generation of Daytona you're talking about, except for the 16523, which trades considerably below the retail price of its current production successor, it seems to me to be a no-brainer that this would be the one that I would go for. But of course, people's preferences vary, and the market as a whole and demand in the market as a whole is what dictates these prices. So clearly, there's way more people out there who prefer the steel version over the two-tone version. But would you rather wait for current production 126500, or would you get the 16523, or would you bite the bullet and get a steel Daytona on the secondary market today? What's your preference? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.